Yeah.
That was so good.
I love that that's the one you thought of. Like out of all the 90s songs, you're like, you know what one?
I still know all the words.
It's
Don't
an
even get me
earworm.
started.
The recorder's going, and here we go. Another episode of Cash's Top 5. We've got a fun one on deck today. Joining me today, a longtime friend in radio, which I guess technically we were former co-workers. You know, we worked for the same company, but in very different markets. Hannah, what's up?
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to talk 90s. I got all dressed.
Yeah, I appreciate the effort. I mean, you know, some people are like, wait, what list are we doing? And I'm like, oh, come on, this is supposed to be fun. You're like, no, we're going to do. And so spoiler alert, that's what we're doing today.
Oh,
We
yeah.
are ranking our top 5 favorite things about being a 90s kid. And
Yes.
you've got the flannel, you've got the buns going.
Face
It's going to
buns,
be,
my choke. I love a good theme. I even got my tried and true Mountain Dew.
oh boy. Yeah. What I would give for a Capri Sun right now. Oh man.
Ooh, Pacific
Yeah.
Cooler.
But yeah, exactly. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves here on our favorite things of the 90s.
I know, right? We're going into it and we haven't even started the countdown.
Yeah, there's going to be so much nostalgia in this one. I can't wait. Usually, sometimes there's like some, oh, why would you say that? Or why would you pick that? I feel like we're going to love each other's lists, but I'm also curious to see how much crossover we have.
I feel like we're going to have a lot of the same ones. Yeah.
But we'll see. So let's go ahead and get it kicked off. Hannah, let's start with your number 5. Best things about being a 90s kid. Let's go.
Our TV shows were so much better, and I'm going to come out strong and say it, because ours were real, actual problems in life, like Saved by the Bell, Full House, the original 90210. None of them would try to pull some of the stuff that Pretty Little Liars has tried to pull, because it's unrealistic and no one would watch the show in the 90s if they tried to pull that.
Yeah, the only thing I had against 90s shows maybe is especially Full House, which I guess overlapped. It was 80s and 90s. It all wrapped up in a bow at the very end, and then the piano comes in. It's the heartfelt moment, the Danny Tanner, everybody hug. And I was just like, as a boy at like 9 or 10 years old, I'm just like, no, there's too much.
Right?
There's too much emotion here. There's too much.
It was definitely
hand-holding.
a little cheesy.
Yeah, but it definitely was way better quality.
The situations were real. Yeah, like I feel like it was just, there were no crazy things that happened that made you sit there and think, okay, where are the parents? Where are the police? Because all the stuff in the shows these days, it's like, I just don't understand how that's childhood, because that wasn't our childhood.
Right. Well, my number 5 for you is, we're going to stay with the indoors theme a little bit here.
Okay.
The video games in the 90s were just top notch. Now, I'm old enough, and I think we're maybe like 1 year apart, and maybe that's it. But did you have the TV where you had to switch to channel 3 and mess with the antenna a little bit, and then that's how you got your Super Nintendo or your N64 to be able to play?
Yep, we had a Sega Genesis, and actually, I'm sad because that's our first crossover.
Oh no, that's okay. Well, we can talk more about it, but yeah, I mean, so you had a Sega Genesis, right?
I had a Sega Genesis. I actually got the Sega Genesis. They just released it like last year, that has 40 games preloaded on it, and it's the original games. It's so difficult.
Did you get it?
Wait, I think we're frozen.
Oh, are we? Can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
It was
I'm
like
not
a
sure
little
what happened.
glitchy for a second.
So did you get the Sega Genesis like console that comes with all the games on it?
Yeah, the new one. It's not the old one where you have to get the games. It has all the games preloaded, and it's like 40 games. They have Sonic, the Sonic and Tails, Pinball, like all the old classic games, Contra.
Oh man, I would lose an entire week getting to play
Right?
those games again.
Have you ever played Ghouls and Ghosts or Ghouls and Goblins or something like that?
No, what's that one?
It's really it's the most difficult game I think ever created. You're this little guy and he runs through a graveyard and gets attacked by vultures and skeletons. But every time they hit you, you turn into a baby. So you go back in time and the baby's like defenseless. So then it's these vultures coming up and just killing a baby.
That's incredible. I wish I could have been in some of the pitch meetings for ideas for these games, because somebody like came up with that and then they got to make that game. Nobody was like, hey, that sounds kind of weird. They're like, no, that sounds good. Let's do it.
Right? How much do you think they got paid in the 90s to make games like that?
I don't know, but I'm glad that they did, because I was a Super Nintendo kid, and the hardest game in the world, I'd have to check out this Ghosts and Goblins game. Home Alone, the video game, was so hard. Like,
I didn't even know they had a game.
Yeah, it's a good time. You have to go, it's basically you run left to right, like normal games, and you have to, basically get rid of Marvin Harry as they chase you around. And you're running around a home and different levels of the house, and it's a good time. But man, is it really hard? Like, I don't think you can beat it.
Fun.
Yeah, you go around collecting things around the house and you put it down the laundry chute, and then you have to dodge all the traps that you set for the other guys. Yeah, it's a good time. It's fun, but just nightmares of trying to beat that, and there's just no way to do it.
Right, and that's why I love 90s games too, because there's no buying extra lives. There's no extra skins or cool weapons that you pay money for. It's you have 3 lives and then you're done. So if you lost, you lost. Like, it took actual skill to win video games.
Well, we have a strong start of being indoor kids. Hopefully we can work on our tan here in a little bit. You had TV at number 5. What do you have at number 4?
Our slang was the bomb.
Oh, the slang. I was okay. Yeah, no, you're right.
Right. I will say all that in a bag of potato chips until I die. I don't care. That's my favorite saying. It's perfect amount of sass and pettiness. Gets the point across.
Yeah. What are some other, like, Da Bomb for sure is 90s. As if all, whatever, all the Clueless.
Mm-hmm. Remember that loser, double loser. Get the picture done.
Yes. Oh, and that kind of morphed into, because this is 90s too. A lot, the slang also finally started coming from movies as well. Like, you had the Austin Powers. You couldn't go anywhere 97 to 99 without hearing "Yeah, baby" and
right, groovy baby,
Shagadelic and all that stuff. Yeah, no, that's such a good one. I didn't think of that. 90s slang is great. And
what's your number 4?
My number 4 is,
I'm so curious. I'm so excited.
So this is one where I was like, I'm pretty sure that she's going to have this one in some capacity. My number 4 are the crushes. 90s crushes were undefeated. I mean, it started with Winnie Cooper in the Wonder Years, which was kind of 80s, but I watched it in the 90s, as I think it kind of went into the decade. But you had Stacey Dash from Clueless. You had the Pink Ranger, Amy Jo Johnson. You had Kelly Kapowski from Saved by the Bell. You had Clarissa Explains It All, Michelle Trachtenberg. I mean, just the crushes were unbelievable in the 90s. And even like the adult crushes, like Rachel from Friends or Pam Anderson. I had posters up on the wall. I mean, yeah, being a prepubescent or almost a teenage boy in the 90s, there were puppy dog eyes everywhere in my
Same
life.
For the girls too. Like, we had Jonathan Taylor Thomas. I mean, he was just awesome. But my first crush was probably Zack Hansen, because he was close to my age and I had a thing for drummers. I loved his long hair. He was the best. He was so dreamy. I had a book from the Scholastic Book Fair. It was called Zack Attack.
Oh man. Well, see, and I had to think about it. I was like, who's Zack Hansen? I was like, oh, Hansen, right.
Yeah. So who was your first crush was Winnie, or did you have a different
Winnie was probably the first one, but I mean, Kelly Kapowski is probably number one for sure.
The all-time.
Oh yeah, huge Tiffany Amber Thiessen fan back in the day.
What'd she do? It's not anymore.
Oh no, I just don't watch like Lifetime movies or whatever she's into, so I haven't really kept up. No offense.
She's
but no,
the new Hallmark Christmas girl.
yeah, she's still gorgeous, I'm sure. I guess that'd be really sad if I like 30 years later, I'm still keeping tabs, like following her on Twitter and Instagram, seeing what else she's doing. But no, yeah, Kelly Kapowski with a bull number one
Where
crush
does
for sure.
Topanga stand?
Oh man, actually, I should probably
Right?
take that back. Topanga is up there as well. Yeah, man, there's so many. Well, and then the 90s. So Sarah Michelle Gellar came on the scene. Jennifer Love Hewitt came on the scene. All the chicks with three names. Melissa Joan Hart. I mean, yeah. Well, that would be its own episode. We should probably move on.
Is it like sad. Rachel Lee Cook too? Wasn't she in 90s?
Yes, Rachel Lee Cook. She's all that. If you had three names and you were you looked good with glasses and you take them off.
Ooh, Freddie Prinze Jr. Oh my God, the 90s had a whole thing about three names.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, TV, we had slang. What's your number three?
Oh, I don't know if you're going to agree with this, but fast food restaurants were a lot better in the 90s. Because you go into McDonald's and it's an experience. There's figures everywhere. Like remember all the characters they used to have?
Oh yeah.
The Hamburglar and I don't even know, the big purple guy. What was
Grimace.
his name? Do you know? Brutus. So he was there and they had the hamburger like bar stools that you could sit on. Now you go into a McDonald's and you look like you're going into a jail.
They corporatized it a lot.
They did. I really think that the toys in the Happy Meals were a lot better in the 90s too. Like we used to have a lot of collectible cups and plates and stuff, and I don't think they do that anymore.
I was going to ask, do they? Because if they do, I can't really hold it against them now because we're obviously not interested in the toys now. So they may still be good. Well, I guess, yeah, for me, I'm not, but if you're still into it, that's cool. But yeah, I haven't seen a Happy Meal in forever. Like I'd never see them out in the wild anywhere.
Yeah. They brought back Pokemon cards. So that was exciting.
Oh man, that's really 90s. Okay.
Right.
Fast food. Okay. My number three for you is one that I'm sure is somehow in your list somewhere. And we both work in radio, so we kind of are musically inclined. But my number three favorite thing about being a 90s kid is Top 40 radio in the 90s was just incredible. I mean, not to sound like old crusty guy now, but I listen to Top 40 radio and it all sounds the same. It's all really produced and everybody mumbles and, that's great. Post Malone's awesome, but I want some variety. And, the 90s had boy bands and the girl pop stars. It had alternative rock bands. It had hip hop. It had country. Shania Twain and the Dixie Chicks were humongous in the 90s. Garth Brooks. Reba. You had the Latin explosion with J-Lo and Mark Anthony and Enrique. I mean, it was so diverse and it was just smashes across the board. I mean, there were just No Doubt came on the scene in 95 with Don't Speak. I mean, there was so much singer-songwriter like Jewel and all the one-hit wonders that came with that, like Lisa Loeb and Sixpence None the Richer. 90s Fantastic. Top 40 radio, untouched.
Yep. And I love that you could listen to Top 40. And like you said, it was all different. Nothing sounded the same. It was never a guess of who's singing that song because their voices were so distinct and their sounds were so distinct. Oh, yeah. I love the 90s. That makes me so happy because now I'm thinking of all those like obscure 90s songs. Like, wasn't that, do you remember the song? It's Butterfly. I don't want to sing it. It's like, you have a butterfly, sugar, baby.
Yeah, come my lady, come my lady. You're my butterfly, sugar, baby. Crazy Town.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was so good.
I love that that's the one you thought of. Like out of all the 90s songs, you're like, you know what
I
one?
still know all the words.
It's
Don't
an
even get me
earworm.
started.
Crazy Town. That's hilarious.
Such a sexy, pretty little thing.
That takes me back to like here in Indy, we had a place called the Roller Cave. Did you have like a roller rink where you'd go on Friday nights and they would play like Kiss from a Rose? Seal was like the slow skate song. Oh,
we had the Villa.
The Villa?
Yep, the Villa roller rink. We would play Four Corners. Ooh, I feel like I should have put that on my list. Missed out. Missed an opportunity.
Too much. Okay, so we've got TV, we've got slang. Fast food was one I was not expecting. That's hilarious. What's number 2? We're getting there.
My number 2 was video games.
Okay, so tell me a little. So you had Sega Genesis, and you've got the console where you can play the games now. They're all kind of preloaded. Did you have another did you have a Game Boy, or did you have an N64, or did you just have the Sega?
I just had the Sega because when we were younger, my dad, I have 2 sisters. So we're just a group of girls and we weren't huge into video games, but my dad liked them. So he got the Sega Genesis basically for himself. And then, we would get like Barbie games or Beauty and the Beast, which was actually really difficult. And so that was the only games I really played, and like Virtua Cop, until I was a little bit older. And then I would go and play games on like N64 with my cousins. And I was really big on the Pokemon games. Like the Pokemon Snap was probably my favorite because you just went around and had to take good pictures of Pokemon.
Oh, yeah.
It was great. It like ranked you on how good of a picture. I was like a little paparazzi.
So a little sidebar, because I don't want to, if this is your number 1, I don't want to get into it. But so video games we both had. We should also shout out the board games of the 90s. I mean,
ooh, that's true.
Because I grew up, I had a sister, so we had Mall Madness, we had Pretty Princess. Which there are super embarrassing pictures of me somewhere in my mom and dad's house with the crown and all the jewels and all that stuff playing with my sister. And I know the games are older, but I feel like they 90s fight them when we got, so like we had the updated Clue game, we had the updated Monopoly. I mean, there were some really good games in the 90s that weren't necessarily just the video games. There was some good stuff.
I feel like Boggle came out too, and like Pictionary came out in the 90s.
Those were huge. Pictionary was a mainstay. Like I was with that nerdy group of friends where we would play Pictionary at my buddy's house and it would get intense. But yeah, it was good. It was a lot of fun.
That's so much fun. That's my family. We're big on board games too. We play Parcheesi a lot, and we started very young at 500 Rummy. So bring it.
Well, my number 2 for you is kind of a crossover as well. We kind of touched on it earlier, but we can go a little more in depth. My number 2 is my second favorite thing about being a 90s kid are the television shows. And to highlight some of them, they were so good. So my favorite cartoon was for sure Doug.
So good.
And I know this because I get that it's generational. So I'm sure that our parents watched our cartoons and our shows and they thought this is terrible. Just like we watch the shows now and they're like, this is, we say this is awful. But Doug stands up because I'll somehow see episodes as an adult later on. And I've saw Doug within the last few years. The game shows like Legends of the Hidden Temple, Family Double Dare, Global Guts, Wild and Crazy Kids. I wanted to be a Wild and Crazy Kid so bad. It looked like the best day at camp ever. And not necessarily a kid's show. I wish they would bring it back, is Pop-Up Video.
I used to love Pop-Up Video.
Incredible. You'd have TRL on MTV, and then you'd switch over to VH1, and then Pop-Up Video would be on for a couple episodes. And that's how you got to learn this older music. They'd have the countdown shows so you know what the current stuff is, but then they'd do Pop-Up Video. It was just so good. Boy Meets World, to kind of tack onto what you were talking about with Family Matters and Full House. God, they were just so Adventures of Pete and Pete, one of the best theme songs of all time.
Oh, I forgot about that. Remember Salute Your Shorts too?
Camp Anawana, yes.
Yes.
Oh, a giraffe's tongue is black. I remember Kevin Ugly, and Zeke the Plumber. Remember Zeke the Plumber?
Zeke the Plumber, yep.
Oh
he was so creepy. Every time that he came on in that opening scene, I had to look away. That and Are You Afraid of the Dark? I wasn't even afraid of the dark, but that creeped me out so bad.
That show was legit scary. There were a couple episodes where there was a monster that came through the pool in the school, like through the drain. He was a monster.
Oh my God.
And there was one where there was like an old lady that had a mystic shop with the monkey's paw. No, I will never watch it. I don't care if it's hokey now. It's scared.
I'm out.
It scared the hell out of me when I was a kid. I'm sure it's still scary. But yeah, TV in the 90s, so choice. So, okay. I'm curious if we have the same number one. I'll be really happy if we do have the same number one, but we'll see. We've got TV, we've got slang, we've got fast food, we've got, what was your number two?
My number two was video games.
Video games was the same as my number four or my number five. What's your number one? Best thing about being a 90s kid?
Oh, the boy bands.
Okay. So we don't have the same number one.
I was the biggest fan of boy bands ever. And my mom used to take us to a lot of shows. And I remember even my Nana asking her one time, why do you take them to see? And she's like, because it's actually kind of fun.
Yeah, it's a show.
I was into everything. Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Boys to Men. And then the girl bands were just as good. TLC, Spice Girls, Destiny's Child. Like, there's no one out there like that. They tried to bring boy bands back and it didn't work because the 90s are where they'll live forever. Like, that was supreme.
Yeah, I mean, what's funny is I grew up with a sister, so I always use that as an excuse as to, oh yeah, I know the NSYNC, I know Backstreet Boys because Melinda would listen to the songs, but all the dudes that would hate on the boy bands, when the songs would come on, they would sing along and know all the words. I'm like, yeah, see, you're the same people that hate on Nickelback. You make all the jokes you want, but when the songs come on, you know all the words. So
they were in the corner like, ain't no love.
Yeah. And
they
then there was like also there were tiers to it, right? Because I mean, NSYNC and BSB and Destiny's Child and Spice Girls were like the gold standard, but you had like Bewitched, you had Three Little Women, 3LW, you had BB Mac from Canada, I think. I mean, there were tons. S Club 7. Oh,
S Club 7.
So good.
They were great. I used to, and there was another one too. LFO. Duh.
Oh yeah. Summer Girls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There was just boy bands and girl bands need to stay in the 90s. The world isn't ready for them. The world doesn't deserve them. These kids these days do not deserve good boy bands.
They don't appreciate it. They're just stuck on YouTube watching other kids play video games. They don't appreciate the quality entertainment that we do.
I agree. 100%.
I am flabbergasted that my number one did not appear on your list at all, let alone be number one. I
feel like I missed something.
Well, maybe. And I could be wrong. I might just be overselling this a bit, but we're going to find out. I had video games. I had crushes, top 40 radio, TV shows. My number one favorite thing about being a 90s kid is AOL Instant Messenger. AIM chat was so much fun. And we bridged the generations. When you hear about old folks like, yeah, I grew up in the generation where, we rode our bikes until the street light came on and you had to be home by the time the street light came home, and we were outside all day playing baseball and basketball. I'm like, yeah, we did that stuff too. But then this really cool thing came around right as we were hitting, teenage years or preteen years.
Like, yeah, preteen.
And when you think about it, other than maybe Bill Gates or whoever, we were the only people on the internet at the time. It was just our generation in these chats. messaging back and forth, the doo-doo-doo, like the little sound effect when you get a message. And
Oh yeah, remember the door closed?
yeah. Oh, they signed out. I was, we were in a middle of a conversation. You go into chat rooms and you post jokes and link to funny videos. That was like YouTube before YouTube. GIFs were just starting to become a thing. And oh man, AOL Instant Chat was so much fun. It was probably
What a time to be alive.
yeah, it was probably the death knell and why we're such an indoor society now.
Right? It's the start of the end of everything.
But I feel like we got the best of both worlds, bridging the outdoors. And because I remember it'd be summer and you'd go out, or at least I would, I'd go out and ride my bike or roller skate and play basketball with my buddy. But then when it becomes noon or 1 and it's blazing hot outside and you don't have a pool, you're like, all right, I'm going to go inside and go chat for a couple hours. The old Windows XP.
Oh, you're lucky. We had a time limit. We could only be on the internet for 30 minutes a day. That's it. My mom was not having it.
That's true. Well, you also had, because you would take up the phone line. That was the big, it wasn't that you were wasting too much time. It's like, no, if somebody's trying to call, they can't get through. I remember that being a big deal.
Please, she still made us hung. She answered the phone, kicked us off. Please.
Oh man. Well, is there anything that we didn't hit? Any honorable mentions that you had?
I have an honorable mention. It's a little strange, but I do think that you're going to agree that candies and bubblegum were better in the 90s. Bubblicious is all I can think about. All the flavors of Bubblicious that we had, and the big chew that looked like chewing tobacco, and it came in a pouch. I don't know if they still sell that, but that was like the best gum.
Do you remember the gum that came? It looked like it came in a pager. It was like green or pink.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the best gum. I mean, not fruit by the foot, but the bubble tape.
The circle one.
The pink bubble tape was really good bubble gum too.
Do you remember the one with the tattoos you'd put on your tongue with the zebra on the front?
Yeah, what was that called?
I don't know. So I think it was like fruit stripes or fun stripes.
Oh man, I'm gonna be Googling so many things after we've talked, because you've unlocked portions of my brain I forgot were there. I'm like, oh yeah,
we're just picking in there.
Yeah. I have a theory about that, because I think fast food was better back in the day too. I think gum and candies were better. I also think we didn't talk about it, but because it started in the 80s, I didn't feel right putting it on our list. But Book It, being a Book It kid, you read the books in the summer and you get a personal pan pizza from Pizza Hut.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, but that pizza was better too when we were kids. I feel like they found a cheaper way to use, they use different chemicals because it's cheaper, and now it's just not as good. It's not fresh ingredients, I feel like. Not to disparage Pizza Hut. I'm sure they'll be a big sponsor of this show someday.
Oh yeah. When's the last time you went into a Pizza Hut?
Oh,
it's been a while.
I can't even remember. I mean, I miss the old Pizza Hut with the big stained glass lamp overhead, and you've got the red cups and the arcade games and the salad bar.
You ever have their chocolate pizza?
No. Is it good?
It used to be.
Not anymore. They started using those chemicals.
I don't know. It was like, have you had the chocolate Lunchables pizza?
No.
Not a chocolate pizza guy. I get it.
I feel I've missed out. While my mom wasn't kicking me off the internet, she wasn't giving me cool snacks to have.
Right. She wasn't feeding you with sugar.
No.
It was basically just like pizza dough with chocolate and little M&Ms on top. And they called it dessert pizza. It was good? So good.
Okay. Well, Lunchables is a great call, because Lunchables came on when we were kids in the 90s, and then pizza Lunchables became a thing.
Oh yeah.
Was huge. You felt great walking into lunch and you had that Lunchable, or it was on a field trip, you had the Lunchable with the Capri Sun and the Reese's cup in there. Did you have any other honorable mentions or anything you didn't like about being a 90s kid?
No, I feel like I am so happy that I grew up in the 90s, because we missed all of the social media stuff. We missed all the weird pressure that I feel like a lot of kids are growing up with today. And so I'm like counting my lucky stars that we didn't have to deal with that, because it's probably got to be pretty rough.
Yeah, I mean, especially now when, you know, you can go look back, it's public record. You can find tweets, you can find YouTube videos. I mean, if you're posting mess when you're 13 and you don't know what the hell you're saying, and it's there forever,
Yep.
and you got to live with that. I feel like, yeah, we're lucky because we were the MySpace generation, and we kind of predated that a little bit. I remember when that came around, and I'm sure I don't remember being super reckless with what I was saying, but I also don't remember. I definitely wouldn't want to be judged 20 years from now. Somebody can pull that up like, hey, yeah, you said this. And I'm like, oh God, I don't.
Might be like, hey, remember when you were super emo?
Yeah.
Yes,
Hey,
I do.
guess what? We're not hiring you. Oh, great. That's lovely.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, Hannah, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. This was a lot of fun. I really miss the 90s a lot. So thanks for
Yeah.
picking a really fun one. You're on the radio. I know you're huge in the digital space. Where can people follow you? Where can they grab your content? All that good stuff.
At Hannah Radio on Twitter and Instagram. Thanks for having me. This has been so much fun. We got to do this more. Can we do early 2000s next time? And just
like
basically talk about all the same stuff.
Pretty much, yeah. We'll just revive the VH1 series, like the I love the 90s, I love the 80s, the I heart the 2000, like.
Ooh, we should also do like top 5 Britney Spears albums of all time.
I know my favorite's probably, I don't even think I could name 5. There's Baby One More, there's One More Time. And then what was the one after that that had Oops, I Did It Again on it?
I think it was just called Oops, I Did It Again.
That's the name of the album too?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
See,
you
okay.
got 2. You're
got
fine.
2.
We're doing
I got
it.
2.
It's happening.
Well, we'll definitely do another top 5. I appreciate you, and we'll talk to you soon, okay?
Yeah, thank you. Bye.